Okay, here we go. I'm gonna turn down the music. This is a wee bit loud for me. Here we go. Okay, so I don't remember how I found this. I think it was recommended, and I was just looking for queer visual novels, and of course this one jumped out at me because Night of the Lesbian Vampires. I mean, what more do I need? What more incentive do I need to pick a game called that? Because so many video games have either a majority male love interest, or there isn't even a, or if it is queer, it's gay. So I wanted to give some exposure to a lesbian game, and there is a um, lesbian game that I kickstarted last year that should be released soon, and I'll probably play the demo for that after I finish playing this. I don't know how long this is going to take. Um, but the um, this is an interesting. I'm looking at the person who posted this on itch.io, and they have a lot of um, games up. So there, if you do use itch, the username of the person that posted this game is Jamie Scribbles Games, and there's horror novels. There's other horror games that they've created, so that says a lot. What caught my attention here was Lesbian Vampires. Um, so I have no idea what's coming. I haven't played this ahead of time. Um, so let's go ahead and start. What's a girl? Oh, I should. So this is the summary on Itch. What's more pathetic than being alone on a Friday night? Being alone at work on Halloween night because of a stack of paperwork, of course. What's a girl to do when she gets two visitors at midnight who both want her and some blood? So this is set in 1997. It specifically says that. Geez. I was. Some people probably weren't even born yet. And I was in middle school, high school, 97. That, yeah, I would have been turned 14 that year. And if it's Halloween, then I had just barely turned 14 because my birthday is the end of October. The brightness of the computer screen was killing me. The adjustment wheel was sticky, so I didn't dare to touch it. I resisted the urge to check the clock. I did not want to see how late it was getting. I had a stack of horror movies waiting for me at home, and my solo, totally not sad Halloween marathon was looking like it might be ruined. I had intended to sit on the couch, eat takeout, and watch Blood and Mayhem play out for my enjoyment on the screen. So I was sitting at the desk going over forms for my way too successful blood drive. Real blood was just not as much fun as fake blood. I sighed. The night had gone quiet, all the nearby shops were closed, and everyone was out at Halloween parties or trick-or-treating with their families. Um, if it were me, it was probably trick-or-treating. We're getting right to that age where it's like, oh, that's lame. But I don't want to go to parties. I'm not a party person. Oh yes, there is voice acting. I sighed again. There was a small tapping on the window behind me. I turned around, expecting to see an errant tree branch or bush. However, it was a woman instead. Oh, hello. I almost fell out of the chair trying to turn around to face her. She stood there, tapping gently and looking at me through the glass. Well, that's a lovely voice. She said it slowly, enjoying every syllable. Her chest heaved as she breathed. She wore a tight corset with pink leopard print and had long, flowing blonde hair. Great, a drunk. I said the last part quietly. She grinned at me. I felt the blood rush to my face. I had never been hit on so directly by a woman, and now there was one standing outside the window doing just that. Had I died of boredom? We're gonna go with the first one, totally. This was not the weirdest way I'd ever been asked out. So, oh, I couldn't do that. We were closed. I tried to explain, but there was a loud knocking at our front entrance. Damn it! Now what? Um, I walked away from the woman at the window and walked towards the front. It was Halloween. Why did I think I'd have a normal night at work, closed or not? The front of our clinic was all glass, so I could easily make out yet another woman. She knocked on the door until she saw me, and then stopped. She pushed her glasses up her nose and then gave a harsh wave. She wore a baggy sports jersey over a pair of washed-out overalls. For fuck's sake. What? Why? I rubbed my cheeks. Why me? I should be bloated from salty junk food and laughing at ridiculous jump scares right now, not trying to explain our hours to strange yet attractive women. The knocker lady seemed to see something because she looked away and then scowled. The woman from before walked around to stand beside the other. I guess her name was Carmilla. She purred the words while looking at me, then turned back to the other woman. So the other woman was named Elizabeth, and I seemed to know each other. I glanced back at the computer. I still had so much work to do. She looked me over slowly and then continued. Oh man, can I pick both? They both turned their attention to me, causing a sensation similar to ice sliding down my spine at the sudden attention. Cleared my throat and tried again. Elizabeth sighed and pushed her glasses up the bridge of her nose. It seemed to be a habit she did often. At least this was the second time I had witnessed it. I stood up a bit straighter, suddenly understanding what this late night visit was about. I guess that's how Mr. Weiss kept sneaking in here after we were closed. Blood had gone missing, but still had some medications and money. Crossed my arms, grateful that the door was locked. It made it easier to stand tall and act braver than I really was. Carmilla frowned and placed her palm on the glass. Okay, you're going a little overboard, honey. She muttered something under her breath, but I didn't catch it. Carmilla seemed to have heard, but didn't react. I waved my arms at them the same way I would get that overconfident raccoon off my porch. It might work. Drama queen, somebody? I had not known Claudia that well, but those were not words I would have used to describe her. She was an old woman with a sour face, and not nearly as mean as she looked. For the most part, she kept to herself. Who would have suspected she was robbing the place blind? I half-heartedly waved at them again. Maybe it would work the second time? Camilla smiled sweetly at me. Elizabeth peered closer at me and then pointed at my chest. I looked down. Name tag. Nope, definitely not. Carmilla scoffed and pushed her hair off of her shoulder in a haughty movement. Elizabeth's eyes widened and she shot a look at Carmilla. Of course, if one of them was to say it, it would be her. She opened her mouth a bit, and sure enough, she had two extended canines. They do list the voice actors for the different characters. Um, I feel like I know Elizabeth's voice actor. She winked at me. Elizabeth let out a long, tired sigh. Camilla shrugged. Elizabeth turned to face me and gave me a small smile. Perhaps it was meant to look reassuring. She opened her mouth and showed off her own matching set of fangs. I nodded. They looked too old to be in a sorority. I studied their faces for a moment. Camilla smiled and leaned forward, eyes half-lidded and with a wide smile. She purred, sighing her finger gently against the glass that separated us. Carmela sighed. Elizabeth hissed and shook her head. Oh, that's blackmail. I looked at them. They were both very pretty, but were they really immortal creatures of the night? And I'm supposed to just hand over some blood bags because of this bullshit? Elizabeth rolled her eyes. I crossed my arms and used my most stern expression. Carmela frowned. This I didn't love the idea of opening the door, but if they were vampires, they wouldn't be able to get in. And if they weren't, well, they didn't look that dangerous. Ooh. Hmm. Meeny, miny, mo. RNG, save me! And by RNG, I mean dice. Gotta get my dice used somehow. Okay, come on. There we go. Okay, got my trusty D4 again. And if it's odd, we open the door. If it's even, we go outside. I'm not sure which one I want to go with. It's a 1, so that's open the door. I decided to open the door, but would stay inside where I felt safer. With only a bit of hesitation, I opened the door, stepping back, but ready to slam the door closed if they tried anything. They just stood there and didn't dash in like I had feared. Elizabeth smirked. She grabbed hold of Carmilla, who looked confused and then very upset. Elizabeth lifted Carmilla up off the ground as though she weighed nothing and then threw her towards the doorway. Their faces! I expected her to sail through it, but she didn't. I gasped in horror. It was almost like a cartoon. Carmilla landed hard against the opening, instead of sailing through it like she should have done. It was like there's an invisible wall there. She slid down and landed on the pavement with an annoyed grunt. Elizabeth's face. Camilla stood up, but sometimes shaken and injured. She glared at Elizabeth. I guess I had no choice but to believe them. I shook my head. Yep. Right, if they were vampires, they needed blood. However, it would be risky. Our inventories were watched much closer after Claudia was caught stealing, though I was here alone and currently working with the inventory files. I could possibly mark 2 bags as contaminated for disposal, and I might not check the numbers too closely, as long as it didn't become a regular thing. Camilla hummed a little while Elizabeth adjusted her glasses again. I didn't want to leave them waiting too long. I went back to my computer and scanned the spreadsheet of donations I had been in the middle of processing before they came. Hell, there's still so much left to do. There's no way I'd be able to finish it all tonight even without any distractions. Right, time to commit a human error. I marked the next two entries as contaminated. Now to actually locate the bag. I stood up and walked briskly back towards the front. Carmela and Elizabeth were still there, so I gave them a quick thumbs up. They only blinked in response. Smiled awkwardly. I tried not to notice Carmela's cleavage and Elizabeth's posture. What was it about someone's posture that could be so hot? Fuck, they were staring now. I turned away and headed towards the walk-in refrigerator. My mind was going to bad places. I had been single for too long. My lab coat was soaked and it didn't do much against the coldness of the room. At least I knew what I was looking for. Aha! Found them. I went back to the front to show them. I handed over the blood to them. Both of whom took one bag each with a smile. I looked back towards where my desk was. I really should get back to work, even if I was tempted to linger. Vampires. Wow, if I had the chance to get to know one of them a bit better. Oh boy. Carmilla's fun, but I kind of like Elizabeth better. I like Elizabeth's attitude. Carmilla just seems way too over the top. Elizabeth cleared her throat. In fact, she had specifically told me I should go home about 4 hours ago. Movies that are waiting for me, but how could they hold any appeal against a real-life vampire? Right here. None. You need to be charged. Okay, the headphones are charging. Besides that, she's totally my type. The glasses, the sports jersey, those adorable freckles. I smoothed the shirt I wore under my lab coat down a bit. Clean thoughts, Mina. Come on. I paused. She noted my hesitation and lifted her hands innocently. I thought it over for a moment. She had the blood. She seemed friendly and genuinely curious. There was no in her voice trying to warn me. In fact, it was very adamantly encouraging me. If that inner voice is me, then yes, totally encouraging. I watched to see if anything exciting happened when I verbally allowed her inside. It did not. No sparkles or music. She just stepped inside as if the barrier had never been there to begin with, though it clearly had. I tried not to be disappointed. She followed me to the back room, quietly taking in everything around her as she walked. Was she looking at me? I was glad I wore my favorite shirt today. I sat at the computer and started to close down the software, making sure to save my progress. I looked up at her, horrified. She laughed. I chuckled. I should not have fallen for that so easily. Maybe. I paused and had to take a deep breath. How could I pick? Let's see. Asking the dice here. Odd, it's Night of the Living Dead, even it's Bram Stoker's Dracula. It's a 1. Again. Elizabeth smiled and nodded politely. I started to go on about Romero, but stopped. I didn't want to bore her. Not many people wanted to hear me ramble about horror movies. She stared at me for a moment, then looked away. She seemed to be thinking it over, and her brow creased. I gasped. Elizabeth laughed and shook her head. I shrugged and rubbed my palms on my pants. This is adorable. Her eyes widened a bit and she turned away. Like Jaws, but I didn't say that. I had heard the movie wasn't popular among marine biologists because of the backlash it had created against sharks. Yeah, I think Steven Spielberg, I think he's the one who did the movie. He really regretted making Jaws because of the backlash. Her eyes lit up. I could tell it was something she was passionate about. Oh boy. I love her passion. This was amazing. I'm glad I picked her. I shut the computer off and took out the keys to lock up. She was so smart. I loved listening to her talk and really wanted to hear more. I'd never known anyone who was into marine biology before. I should probably save this. She pushed her glasses up her nose and grinned. I wasn't sure why I would tell Camilla or why it would matter if I did. I was happy to oblige. We headed outside. I locked up and Elizabeth got us a cab to a bar, Bloodlust. I'd never gone inside before, but I had heard plenty of rumors. Mostly about it being a gay bar, but now I wondered if there was more to it than that. It was pretty crowded inside, but she managed to lead me to a quiet corner. It had a really nice atmosphere, though. No fly zone. Look at the decorations. Oh my gosh, adorably awkward. This is so fun. We're going to an awkward silence filled by loud alternative music. I had totally forgotten how to hold a conversation. Oh gosh, I hate when that happens. I've never been good at dating. It's been a long time since I've been on one. I tried to think of something really smooth to say, but couldn't manage it. It sounds like Elizabeth has the same damn problem. She pointed at the ceiling. She smiled and glanced at the bar. Good idea. Something to do with my hands right now might help me calm down. Painkiller. Okay, so got my D4 out. So we're gonna let one Dr. Stormy, two tequila sunrise, three cranberry juice, four painkiller. One again. I'm gonna roll that again because this is the third time I've gotten a one. Okay, shake it up a bit more here, and it's on the floor. A four. Okay. So painkiller. Does she think I'm cool because I drink girly drinks? Should I have put it in beer? I hated the taste though. I mean, if you think about it, beer is basically wheat juice. That was something that we talked about in one of my classes in college. Was that back in medieval times there were two things to do with wheat. You could use it to make bread or beer. And I'm like, well, that just put me off beer entirely. She only smiled in response. Oops, did not mean to press that one. She laughed and I took a deep breath. This is going well, right? I thought so. Did she look bored? No, probably not. The change in location I messed up the flow of our conversation, or maybe I was just nervous here in the bar. It felt more like a date. I should ask her more questions when she gets back. I glanced out into the crowd and saw her carefully making her way through it. She held a painkiller and nothing else. I suppose vampires only drink blood. That depends on the vampire in question, I suppose, or just the mythos. Because in When the Night Comes, Finn drinks occasionally, but that's Finn. She returned and handed me the drink. I took a careful sip. It tasted great. She shrugged as if it was no big deal. Oh my gosh, I love this closer look at her. Yes, freckles, glasses, red hair. Oh, that might explain why she didn't have to wait as long as everyone else who were all gathered around the bar. I wonder if she has dirt on the bartender or something. It wouldn't surprise me. Okay, now's your chance to get to know her. Just think of a really insightful question and she grinned at me. I couldn't hide a feeling this wasn't our typical hangout, but I didn't want to say anything. Rats! Someone has opinions here. I love it. She burst out laughing, covering her mouth, perhaps to hide her fangs. Are they really? Smiled as she said, and I couldn't help but notice how attractive she was when she was amused. Aww. I did not need to go into the evil hamster I had as a pet when I was a kid. Sure, some of them were actually cute and nice, but I need to see it to believe it. I smiled down at my painkiller, trying to ignore the way my heart was fluttering in my chest. The problem is, I would love to have a rat, but the problem is, we have 3 cats. One of whom, well, 2 of whom are very avid hunters. Um, yeah, my cat and my sibling's cat have both make kills, shall we say. They weren't supposed to, but they did. So until we have no cats, we can't get any rats. I cleared my throat and tried to play it cool. I took another drink and tried to think of something not uncool to say. Elizabeth spoke before I could. She smirked and took a few small steps closer to me, probably to hear me better. The music was pretty loud. Okay, vampires would be a little too on the nose. But musicals, let's see. Let's see what the dice says, just for the hell of it. Another freaking 1. I need to start using a different D4. Luckily, I have plenty of dice to choose from. Here we go. No, that's a D8. There's a D4. I mean, it doesn't matter as long as they're all even numbers, but it's just fun. Okay, this is fun. Okay, let's see what this D4 says. 2. I rubbed my arm. I wasn't sure what to say when she looked at me like that. She grinned and took another step closer. She reached over and tucked a stray hair behind my ear. Oh, getting a little handsy. I mean, tugging hair behind an ear isn't that big a thing, but it can be very intimate if you do it right. Not that I know. This is all mostly me thinking as a writer. She was so close. I could smell coconut. Was this her shampoo? She glanced down at my lips and I felt my heart go from racing to full-on panic. I nodded. That was definitely okay. She leaned in to kiss me and I wrapped my arms around her shoulders. My mind went blank as I felt the brush of her fingers just under the fabric of my shirt. We kissed until I felt like my knees would give out, and then I pulled away. She began to kiss my cheek, and then nibbled on my earlobe. I gasped at the way it felt, and suddenly wondered if there were eyes on us. Did I care? I felt the wetness of the tongue on my throat, and then that stopped me cold. Tense, desperately anticipating what might come next, Elizabeth pulled away. So let's just enjoy the CG. Apparently there's 5 unlockable illustrations. 3 possible endings. So I wonder which one we're going to get. So it concerned. Maybe she thought my reaction was from fear. I smoothed down my shirt. I could still feel the gentle way she had caressed me. Look at that. Blushing. Not that I blame her. That moment I had, which was a bit odd. I'd never wanted someone to bite me before. Was it because I knew she was a vampire? I felt my face grow incredibly hot. Now it just felt awkward. So that sounds like the voice of experience to me. She pushed her glasses up the bridge of her nose. Spoken like a scientist. That was fascinating. Were their fangs hollow? Was it a chemical in their saliva? Of course, most vampires aren't scientists either. She made a face. She chuckled and blushed, rubbing the back of her neck. We both felt quiet, and I found myself looking at her lips again. I should resist. I wanted to talk to her more. Who knows if I'd ever be near a vampire again? Well, if you play your cards right, you'll be near Elizabeth a lot. She nodded. I chuckled, remembering the way she looked squished against an invisible barrier. Fascinating. I don't blame you. That's so funny that we said the same thing. It's almost as if I had found a kindred spirit, someone to discuss things scientifically with, who didn't mind when I rambled about things. She rambled too, but I enjoyed it. We spent most of the night talking. She told me about vampire squids and jellyfish. I told her about obscure, underrated horror movies. It was exhilarating to speak so passionately with her about things we loved. Eventually, I started to feel my entire body screaming at me to sleep. I knew I needed to get home, even if I didn't want the night to end. I finally had to say my goodbyes and head home. I really hope I get to see her again. 1 year later, I sat at the computer and pretended to work. I'd only been waiting for the sun to go down. Then when it did, I waited a bit longer. Then a bit longer. I was running out of things to pretend to do. No matter how long I waited, she didn't show up. Not Elizabeth, and not even Carmilla. I thought for sure they'd maybe come around again on Halloween night, but I suppose they had really found an alternative source. It had been a while. It had been what I wanted, right? So after the night with Elizabeth, the night had gone wonderfully, but afterwards we didn't exchange numbers or anything. I kept hoping she'd stop by, but she never did. I sighed and shut down the computer. The window was empty, no one tapping seductively at the glass. I hung up my lab coat and walked out towards the front. The doorway was also empty, no one knocking with purpose at this late hour. I knew I could go to Bloodlust and see if Elizabeth was around, but that just felt so desperate. If she had wanted to see me, she would have. I sighed. It was fine. There were plenty of other women out there, and one day I would find the right one. She probably wouldn't be a vampire. I dug into my pocket and pulled out my ticket for the midnight showing for Bride of Chucky. Nothing would cheer me up faster than a good horror movie, and the trailer had made it look like a fun time. Did that really come out in '98? I'm not much for horror movies, so her passion is over my head. I even marathoned the previous Chucky movie to prepare. I smiled a little to myself and tucked the ticket back into my pocket. There was no reason to wait around here anymore. I locked up and left. The end? Hmm. 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 It was a bit of a letdown. Oh, I think dyslexic. That's really cool. Feels like there should have been more. It was just the date, I guess. But yes, I'm going back. Okay, so let's save here. This is where I should have saved before. Let's see what happens with Carmilla. Carmilla cleared her throat. I paused. It was really too late to be here by myself. What could it hurt? She was a vampire. I had questions. I watched her twirl her finger around a strand of her soft-looking hair and then gently bite her lower lip. Totally, totally innocent questions. I turned away and hoped I didn't look like a total dope. Calm your gay ass down, Mina. We took a cab to a bar I swear I'd walked past several times. I'd never gone inside before, though. There were plenty of rumors that it was a gay bar. Carmilla confidently walked inside and seemed to know everyone. I couldn't help but wonder. I whispered as soon as we sat down. I couldn't believe such a crowded place had an empty booth. Carmilla seemed to know that it was here because she had led us straight to it. Aha! That explains Elizabeth's comment. She leaned back in her booth and smiled at me. She laughed. And glanced around the bar. Would some super secret vampire cabal appear and convince her she either needed to change me or kill me? That's the kind of thing that would happen in movies, at least. She nodded, looking amused. She smiled slowly. She spoke distantly, and I thought it might be best to change the subject. Carmilla laughed harder than she had so far. Of course she does. She paused, sadness fading from her face, but again it's different emotion replacing it. I shuddered and hoped like hell she didn't notice. I glanced away towards the bar. Maybe I'll drink something to keep my hands busy at the very least. I was so nervous. I wanted, okay, a different choice this year. So, got my D4 again. An old fashioned, a Bloody Mary, a Virgin Mojito, a sex on the beach. 4. Carmilla giggled and she winked at me. I swallowed uneasily. The suggestion had sounded cooler in my head. I wasn't sure if she liked my joke until she smiled at me, amused. She left the booth and headed towards the bar. The crowd parted for her without any effort on her part. I used her absence as a chance to take a breath, to get my thoughts in order. I was on a date with a vampire. It was a date, right? Yes, it was totally a date, right? Right. When she got back, I need to act like it wasn't a total loser. How does a human even try to impress a vampire? She handed me my sex on the beach and then sat back down. She moved closer to me, easier in a circular booth. Sit and watch her over the little glass. It was a good sex on the beach, I think. Carmilla. She looked so comfortable and confident. She smiled at me, and she smiled so easily, so sophisticatedly. I did try to get to know her and try to tell an awesome story. Try to get to know her. She thought about it for a moment, gazing up at the ceiling. Okay. She smiled faintly. I listened intently. There's a sad, nostalgic tone to her voice that has made me pause. That's a dream that was never realized. Curiosity was getting the best of me. I moved a bit closer and lowered my voice. She nodded and moved even closer. Now we were touching, her thigh against mine. Our arms brushed against each other. Camilla pushed my hair behind my ear, and I could feel the lightest tickle of her lips as she whispered, She pulled back to laugh at my shocked expression. She shrugged. Why? Thought about all the movies I had ever seen that featured vampires. They're either manipulative monsters or brooding and self-hating. She put her arm around me and pulled me close, causing my vampire-related thoughts to stall. Flush. My voice cracked. She grinned. It was hard to concentrate when she was this close. She smelled like strawberries. I cleared my throat and told her about uh, passion for horror or her job. One. That didn't sound much. Still a one. Geez, what is it with one? Oh my gosh, I got it too. Geez. I love. Whoops. Why do I keep doing that? There is some great horror out there that's just not my thing. The Shining. I think that one was sorry, I'm just it's so weird to hear them talking about it was just this long ago, and it's been so long since then. Thank you. Okay, yeah, that was the one with Jack Nicholson and Shelley Duvall. It was really the way the director treated um, Shelley Duvall to get the reactions was just horrible. And it's based upon a book by Stephen King. That's the Come Stay With Us. I stopped myself. She wasn't bothered, and her eyes hadn't glazed over like I'd seen so often before. Of course she does. She reached over and picked something off of my shirt. My voice cracked. She was just too so close. It made me nervous, but like a good nervous. And not quick enough to avoid being thrown at the door. She seemed to think it over. She tapped her chin thoughtfully. I nodded. Other than the memory thing, it was all typical vampire stuff. She laughed. Yes. She placed a hand on my knee, and I forgot what I was going to say. That was all I could manage. I took another sip of my drink. What else do you talk about on a date? It's been so long since I've been on one, and I was never very good at them. Um, I don't think that's what Carmela meant. She bit her lip, and I had the feeling she was trying not to laugh. I felt her hand slide up my thigh as her fingers drummed a small tune. She moved her hand higher. What were we talking about? Couldn't focus on anything with the way she was looking at me and touching me. Glanced down at her lips, painted with a dark red lipstick. I could see the glint of white fangs. She was asking me a question. Shit, I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. She grinned and leaned in close to whisper against my ear. I shuddered at the sensation of her breath against my skin. She licked the tip of my ear, and I practically jumped out of the seat. I almost spilled my drink everywhere. She reached over and pulled me close to her again. One hand on my hip, the other began to rub circles on the back of my neck. I glanced around the room, but no one was really looking at us. If they were, did it matter? This was a bar, not church or something. I nodded. Yes, I was very much like kissing now. She leaned forward without another word and pressed her lips against mine. I felt my eyelids flutter close. I could hear the throbbing music in the bar, some grungy rock song I didn't know. Her melodies is sharp, like copper. There also was a hint of something quite sweet. Her hair was as soft as I imagined. I felt surrounded by strawberry fields. It must be her shampoo. She pulled away and giggled, moving to kiss the side of my face and then drifting to my throat. I asked, dazed. I felt the tips of her fangs brush gently against my skin, icy and severe. Despite the small voice telling me being bitten was probably not a good idea, I couldn't help but think, yes, I wanted her to bite me. I wanted her to bite me, badly. Her breath was hot, despite the otherwise coolness of her skin and mouth. There was a sharp scrape of her fangs against my skin, and then a quick prick. It only hurt for a moment. Afterwards, I felt a slow, heavy warmth come over me. It lasted only briefly before she pulled away to smile at me. Just a touch of blood at the corner of her lips. That's lovely. I laughed, feeling a bit drunk. She winked at me. I had a feeling she was just trying to flatter me. I nodded. The skin was a bit sore where she had bitten me. I touched the area gingerly, but it wasn't actively bleeding. Just a small dribble of blood. The giddy drunk feeling was fading. I know I hadn't had that much yet. My glass was more than half full. And look, there's that where she's bitten. That's cool. She shrugged. I smirked. She did not look like she cared about any type of scientific explanation, but I couldn't help but be curious. That was for another night, though. She was moving in to kiss me again, so I had better things to occupy my mind. We had a wonderful evening. It started to get late, and I had to work in the morning. Even though I knew I would be exhausted, I hesitantly said my goodbyes. I'd have stayed longer if I didn't feel almost ready to fall asleep. I wondered if I would see her again. 1 year later, I sat at the computer and pretended to work. I'd only been waiting for the sun to go down. Then when it did, I waited a bit longer. Then a bit longer. I was running out of things to pretend to do. No matter how long I waited, she didn't show up. Not Carmilla, and not even Elizabeth. I thought for sure they'd maybe come around again on Halloween night, but I suppose that they had really found an alternative source. It had been what I wanted, right? So after the night with Carmilla, the night had gone wonderfully, but afterwards we didn't exchange numbers or anything. I kept hoping she'd stop by, but she never did. I sighed and shut down the computer. The window was empty, no one tapping seductively at the glass. I hung up my lab coat and walked out towards the front. The doorway was also empty, no one knocking with purpose at this late hour. I knew I could go to Bloodlust and see if Carmilla was around, but that just felt so desperate. If she had wanted to see me, she would have. I sighed. It was fine. There were plenty of other women out there, and one day I would find the right one. She probably wouldn't be a vampire. Dug into my pocket and pulled out my ticket for the midnight showing for Bride of Chucky. No, nothing would cheer me up faster than a good horror movie, and the trailer had made it look like a fun time. I'd even marathoned the previous Chucky movies to prepare. I smiled a little to myself and tucked the ticket back into my pocket. There was no reason to wait around here anymore. I locked up and left. The end? So I got the same ending for both of them. Okay, so that looks fun. A bit short, but that's okay. So yeah, next week I will play that other game that I mentioned. I didn't do it this time, but I guess I just wanted to play Lesbian Vampires. So thanks for hanging out. This video will go up on YouTube, and I hope you have a happy Halloween whenever you watch this. I mean, it's not for several weeks now, but still, happy Halloween.